everyone. Welcome to HERPath, the podcast for busy women looking for purpose, health, and happiness. We are so excited to kick off this podcast with you. We are 4 life coaches. We are busy career women who have families and busy, thoughtful careers. And each week we will be tackling different topics that are important to women and providing a wide array of perspectives. We will give you advice, we will give you tips, we will share our stories, and we will come at it from all of our different specialties. We know that you're going to find this time thoughtful, insightful, and once you get to know us, very entertaining. So let me introduce you to my wonderful co-hosts. So first up, we have Beth, who is a wellness coach finding freedom through food.
Hello, everybody. Good to see you.
And we have Gabby, who is a weight loss coach for women.
Hi, nice to meet you. I'm looking forward to chatting with you.
And Nancy, who's a transformational coach specializing in menopause.
Nice to see everyone.
And my name is Elise. I am a women's purposeful life coach, as well as a career and executive coach. Thank you for being with us today. Let's get started.
Welcome, everyone, to this week's podcast.
Nancy, I am so excited. This is the conversation we need to have. I'm so excited you picked this topic.
We're going to be discussing menopause, how to manage it, and make a transition smoothly. We are all successful women sharing our life experience. We're going to talk about all things menopause, well, whatever we can talk about in 30 minutes, because it's a big topic. And I feel like it just doesn't affect the woman who's going through it, but it affects her family, her partner, her work. And it can be a pretty intense time in most women's lives. I think most women are in that sandwich generation where they have teens at home and yet they could be caring for elderly parents. So it's a time when there's a lot on her plate and there's a lot of stressors. Well, for sure, menopause is the absence of a menstrual cycle for 12 months. The ideal healthy response is that a woman notices changes in her cycle lengths, and at some points, the cycles just stop. There's no significant hot flashes, no mood issues, and no suffering. But what most women face is a time when they crash and burn. It's not normal, and yet it's common. The question is why? So a really super simple explanation of this is once a woman normally loses her pituitary ovarian feedback loop coordination, there are spikes in estradiol taking place. Normally, in a healthy functioning system, the adrenal glands, which are 2 walnut-shaped glands that sit on top of our kidneys, come into play. The adrenals release a hormone called androstenedione that gets converted by our peripheral body fat into estrogen. And so a woman can maintain her estrogen levels. So when a woman exhibits the symptoms of hot flashes, insomnia, mood swings, depressions, and by the way, there's 40 different physical symptoms that are attributed to menopause. So when she's experiencing all these issues, we know that her compensatory adrenal systems are not in place. So I think of it as like an indicator light on your dashboard. I call your adrenal glands your shock absorbers. They're stress glands that secrete cortisol and other glucose and mineral corticoids. When they're in balance, life is good. And when a woman is exhausted, her adrenals have taken a hit. So I feel like in addition to physical stuff, there is emotional age. We feel less attractive. There's achiness. The libido is kind of going. So it can be really overwhelming. And like I just said, it doesn't. Okay, ladies, there are 40 different physical symptoms related to menopause. And not to mention all the emotional aspects that come into play, the aging parents, the teens, empty nesting, feelings that come as we age, feeling less attractive, maybe some achiness, less libido, and it can feel really overwhelming. And like I've said, it doesn't just affect the woman, but it impacts her family, her partner, her work environment. So I want to talk about maybe what we can do to proactively minimize this suffering. I think preparing early, like maybe in your early 40s, caring for your adrenal glands, knowing that they're going to, so to speak, pick up the baton, getting good uninterrupted sleep, hydration, exercise. I feel like it's about finding what you love diet-wise, minimizing carbohydrates, keeping your blood sugar stable, minimizing alcohol, having good boundaries. Your yes should be your yes and your no should be your no. Making time for you, evaluating the need to be all things to all people, which was me, and focusing on you, which I feel like for most of us is very challenging, but finding your joy, I think, is really, really huge. So I've gone through this already, probably about 10 years ago when my parents were having their health issues and my kids were teens. So for me, it was a bit of a disaster. So I really want to help women now who might be in the same space, but really making time for yourself. And I know that is not anything anyone wants to hear, but it's really, really important to be proactive in this phase. Where are you ladies at?
Nancy, can I just ask a question? You resonated with me when you said start preparing in your early 40s. I'm not technically in my early 40s anymore. However, I feel like if I'm in denial that it's going to ever happen to me. My mom, bless her heart, said, "Oh, it's not that bad. I didn't have that many hot flashes. It wasn't that big of a deal." And so in my mind, I'm thinking, well, it's not going to be that big of a deal. And if if I don't think about it, maybe it won't be so bad or it won't happen to me. Um, so I don't know. I'm sure that's not the best way to approach that. And you had mentioned to start to take care of your adrenal glands, which I found interesting, of like managing your stress and eating healthy, eating a low carb diet, managing your blood sugar, minimizing alcohol, and your stress level, your stress management, and having good boundaries.
I totally agree with that. And I feel like we should be practicing that, or it would be ideal if we could practice that self-care at all stages that we are in our life, in looking out for our future self, setting her up for success and to maximize, our future self's functioning. And I'm looking forward to my menopausal, post-menopausal self. I'm going to have so much more wisdom. I'm not going to be having a period. So yay, bye-bye period. And I feel like there are so many ways to manage some of those, symptoms, the mental, the physical, the energy that will allow me to be my best self moving forward. So, and why does it have to be a negative thing? I'm thinking of like all the medical terms like ovarian failure. And like, I'm like, really, is my body failing me? My body's not failing me. It's doing something that is natural and a part of our life. My body's not failing me in any way. So I refuse to think about it in a negative way, making it mean something negative about me at that point. I'm going to embrace it. I'm going to prepare for it, and I'm going to rock it.
I love that. Yeah, it's not a disease, even though there's the ICD codes for menopause, but it's not a disease. It is a normal, healthy part of aging. And I really feel like, Beth, your mom probably did it right. She was probably taking care of herself, because it's not normal to have all the issues that most women are having. It's an indication that, you're not taking care of yourself. And it's just like I said, the indicator lights on your dashboard. Like when your gas gauge is empty, you fill it with gas. So filling up with what you need, knowing what you need, for me, like I had no idea what I needed, was fascinating, because I was so externally focused on being all things to everybody else. I had no idea what I needed. So I was one who crashed and burnt. But the beautiful thing is, it got me to pay attention to me.
Yeah, I think that so I have a couple thoughts. So first, I think as we are getting into this phase, many of us find ourselves in the sandwich generation, like you did, Nancy. You had teenage kids that had a lot of needs, that had a lot of emotions that are, that is not easy work. And then we're also caring for our parents who are needing more and more support. So it falls in a time that our stress levels and our push and pull are so intense.
Mhm.
And how do we get out in front of that? I love, Gabby, that it's a positive thing for you and you refuse to think about it negatively. I love that too. And I feel like right now there is a movement happening. There's more out there. There's more research. There's more options. There's more conversation. We are talking about it. It is definitely a movement. And how wonderful for us that we get to take advantage, full advantage of everything that's out there. To be careful, of course. There's different sources that will tell you different things, but I think we are such in we're positioned better than our moms were and their moms were. I mean, our moms didn't talk about it. All my mother will say is, I'm so glad you girls were in college because I went crazy. That's it. That's all she'll say to me about it. I went crazy and I'm so glad you weren't here to witness it. But
I think,
now,
yeah,
right? I went crazy. But
yeah.
now we have the opportunity to have those conversations. So I've been thinking a lot about how menopause shows up at work.
Mm.
And the need, number one, when we are going through menopause at work, we need to give ourselves all the empathy and grace and kindness and acceptance that we possibly can. And we as women will probably pick up when other women are going through stages of menopause. And
Mhm.
how do we show up for them with empathy and grace and all the kindness that we have?
And people really are, you know, very, very graceful, and the majority very, very kind and compassionate. So I'll tell you, I get very scatterbrained. And I think as I've gotten older, I've gotten way more scatterbrained, forgetful, kind of unfocused. And, that's kind of a part of the process, being busy, juggling multiple things at once, trying to do all the things at once. And even in interactions with people, as I'm talking to them, and I tell them, I'm going to do 1, 2, 3 things for you. But hold on, give me a second. Let me go do number 1 thing for you, and I'll be right back. And I'll just step out and grab them the handout that I said I was going to give them, grab them the prescription that I said I was going to. I have to stop in the moment and go do it and come back. And then I'm just honest with them. Sorry that I stepped out of the room, but if I don't do this now, I'm going to forget, and you're going to leave here and you're not going to have the thing that I said I was going to give you. And then usually it ends up with like, oh, no, me too. I forget, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I have to be very on it, because I know that I have to set those coping mechanisms in place for myself so that I don't suffer at the
Yeah.
end of it. And most people are very compassionate and can relate, especially the women, because we're all kind of going through something similar.
Yeah, and you're starting the dialogue. You're having the conversation. Hey, I have to do this right now. This is how my brain's working right now. And I think that is such an important thing, is having the conversation, saying out loud, hey, I'm so sorry. We're going to be videoing, and there's a very good likelihood that I will have a hot flash because I am in that stage of my life. So if I have a hot flash, I'm gonna turn off my camera or whatever. But when you have the conversation, you release the stigma.
Right.
And I think that is so powerful, because then you're not dealing with it alone. You're sharing things that every other woman can relate to or
Right.
can anticipate or learn from. Like, if there's somebody younger sitting at the table and they hear you say that, they're going to learn something.
Right. Yeah.
And they're going to know when it's their time that it's okay to talk about it. I also think that we need to give ourselves time, you know, as our bodies are changing, as these symptoms may or may not be coming up. If we need to take time, let's take it. If we need to rest more, let's do it. Let's do the things that serve our body through this journey.
And I feel a lot of women who I talk to that are going through it feel like something has to stop, or that a certain kind of life is stopping, and I'm moving to live a different way. A lot of women I talk to, instead of continuing to will stop exercising. A lot of women I talk to feel like, it's time to stop having sex as often. A lot of women feel like it's not time to be sexy anymore because, I'm entering a different phase. I'm not, reproducing anymore, or stop feeling sexy in their bodies. A lot of women feel that I've talked to feel almost like it's a decline instead of continuing to you live a full quality of life. And you're right, a lot of women do suffer in silence. It's not through probing and talking that we finally get to like the root of the matter. And it's not a decline, and it doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't mean we have to stop having sex. It doesn't mean that we have to stop exercising. It doesn't mean that we stop, being ambitious or stop thriving or stop, opening new doors and new chapters simply because we're getting older and our hormonal balance is different and changing. Men don't do that. You know how many men talk to that are in their, later in life and are still, gung-ho, doing business, making money, marrying younger women. I mean, it's a completely different, attitude with men than with women.
Right. I wanted to, oh, go ahead, Nancy.
I was just going to say, for me, it was like such a slowing down because I used to go like 90 miles an hour, like trying to get everything done. And my body was just like, nope, we're just going to chill right now. So I think for me, it's been making peace with not accomplishing all the things I've done before and comparing, because I'm a big comparer. Like I would say, oh my gosh, like 10 years ago, I would have done like so much more, but no, now I'm more purposeful and I'm way slower and more intentional. And it's just a slowing down of life, but it's okay. And I'm actually finally enjoying the slowing down, the slower pace, not feeling like I have to get everything done and not feeling like I have to do everything for everybody. So it's a really beautiful time for me.
And I feel it's wonderful to have that that attitude of knowing that it's okay for me to take care of myself in the way that I need to.
Yeah. And knowing what you need. Like,
and Nancy, I'm curious, when you were going through this slowing down and whatever symptoms or things you had along the way, did you talk to your family about it? Did you let them in? Yeah. So that, I feel like that's so important now to make sure that the people that are the closest surrounding us know, hey, things are changing in my body and in my mind and in my soul. And I'm going to need a little extra grace and I'm going to need a little extra time. And you're going to see me do this, do that, whatever it is, have a hot flash, slow down, sleep more, and set them up for supporting you, but also understanding what's happening. Because you're right. I think, Nancy, it was you that said, it doesn't just happen to you, it happens to everyone around you.
And the funny thing, Elise, when you mentioned that, it never even occurred to me to talk to anybody else about it. Never. Because I don't think I was modeled it. My mom just kind of went through it and she didn't talk about it. So I feel like what we're modeled is what we do. But now it's time we can change that.
Yeah.
Bring awareness to a different phase of life for us.
Yeah. So powerful. I also wanted to circle back around to Beth. So I was in denial for a while too, that it was coming. And my mom would be like, well, you're getting to that time of life and you're probably starting menopause. And, like she just kept like needling me about menopause. She didn't talk about it when she went through it, but she was all about talking about it for me. And I remember being so offended. I'm like, I'm not going through menopause. I am too young to go through menopause, which I clearly was not too young to go through menopause. But not only was I in denial, but like if you said, like even my doctor, I get so mad at my doctor. Like, what do you mean? I'm too young. So I love that you pulled that out because I think we all go through that, a little bit of denial in some sense. and at some stage of our lives. But I also, I want to understand in all of us, but I'm going to ask you the question. It's reality. We know that it's inevitable, right? Every single woman's going to go through menopause. So why do you think we argue with reality?
Because we're making it mean something about ourselves. We're either making it mean, my body's failing me. We're making it mean that getting old is bad or negative in some way. We're making it mean that, I'm no longer sexy. I'm becoming a man, like it's what we're making it mean. And so you can make it mean whatever you want. If it's giving you the desired feeling, then yay. But I think we just have so much negative. And what I love about social media now is that we're seeing so many older women embracing their age and being sexy, being, talking about these things openly. I love, I'm thinking about like Jane Fonda, how she's, aging gracefully and hasn't let that be a barrier or obstacle for her. Rita Moreno, I mean, still, making movies, getting roles, being out there. Madonna putting together this tour and, in little boy shorts and still rocking platform heels and dancing out. I mean, so I think we're just, our society is kind of shifting in a way where it's acceptable now to be, older in age and it be a positive thing. I think the shift is still slow, but I think it's becoming more positive. But we have so much negativity, associated with a woman getting older.
So I think you bring up a really fantastic point about how it shows up for us and how we want it to show up. So for me, when I think about your journey to be, I can't wait for menopause, and here's all the wonderful things that are going to happen. You must have done some thought work. So I'm going to tap into the coaching that we all learned a little bit, and really dive into that purposeful thinking and how our, to your point, how our thoughts, they drive our feelings drive our actions, and our actions drive our results. If we think the thoughts that our world is ending, or that nothing but badness is coming with menopause, then that's what the result's going to be, right? We will manifest that through our feelings and our actions. So I'm wondering, Gabby, because you've done such a good job of this, how did you get there, and how did you turn your thoughts around? How did you manage your mind on this?
So I think for me, it's, multifactorial, just seeing how the impossible is possible. And in a lot of aspects of, of my life personally, a lot of things I didn't think were possible for me. And just by being exposed and having those little thoughts and ideas planted, it's like, wow, this is possible. And so talking to so many women as part of my job as a primary care doctor, and me seeing them, how amazing these women are and how full of possibility and potential, they are to me. And then hearing their, unnecessary suffering, honestly, because it is unnecessary suffering for physical symptoms. There's medications, there's hormone replacement if someone chooses to, because they're physically have an ailment that needs attention to. There's treatment for that. And then there's the mental suffering, which I think totally, unnecessary. We can work on that so that mental suffering is eased. I'm not a big fan, for me, of mental suffering. Is there something that is in my head that is causing me negativity or, holding me back? I need to, work on it and push through it, because I know that's something that I'm putting on myself. And so just talking to so many fabulous, amazing women and letting them know you don't have to suffer, and having that conversation over and over, I think it just reinforces it for me, to knowing that I don't have to suffer. If I don't want to suffer, if I choose not to suffer, I don't have to.
That's great.
I don't know if that makes sense.
So because our thoughts really do drive everything, don't they?
Yeah.
So if we're thinking, I'm going to be doomed, this is menopause, I feel like we're going to create that. But if we look at it through the lens of, oh my gosh, how much freedom can I have now? How much wisdom? How much time can I have for myself? Because things do change. Like, unfortunately, my parents passed and my kids are out of the house, but now it's all me. And it's fabulous. So I can really focus on me.
I just wanted to wrap back around about the being in denial. For me, it is because there is so much negative imagery that I have in my mind regarding menopause and what that change means, not being physically as strong and capable as before, or maybe not feeling as sexy and physically feeling the changes occurring in the body and what that means. And I think for me personally, it's a change happening in my body that I don't feel like I have any sort of control over. And learning from Nancy now, I know that I do, but I'm a huge control freak. And so thinking about my body changing without me participating in that change is a real struggle for me. So I love the the idea of it being more of a rite of passage and moving into a more older, wiser version of womanhood versus saying goodbye and letting go of being youthful.
I think you can get away with more things too.
Like what?
I think you can there's a license and a freedom to say whatever's on your mind. I feel like, I don't know why that comes with age, but it does.
I think sometimes we can be so preoccupied about what other people are thinking, and there gets to another point where you know what, I'm just going to be myself, and if you like it, yay, and if you don't, well, then maybe I'm not your cup of tea.
I
love that. I love that.
Yeah, that is excellent. Good reframes, guys. This has been a good conversation, you guys. I think we should continue it again. I think we'll do part 2 at some point. What do y'all think?
Oh, Nancy, I was going to ask you, can we please do part 2, part 3, part 4? I feel like we could talk about this forever, but yeah, I love this conversation.
Very well, I do too. Okay, guys.
And wait, can we just take a moment and say, Nancy, I just want to make sure every listener knows that this is your expertise, that you are a transformation coach that specializes in menopause, and you have resources, you have a Facebook page, you keep the conversation going. And I just think the work that you're doing in this space is so powerful, and it's part of the movement. So just encourage all of our listeners to follow you on the link in our show notes, and to check out your Facebook page. What is the name? You just changed the name. What's the name?
I changed it to Perimenopause and Beyond.
In Facebook. Yeah. All right. I just feel like everybody should know that the dialogue continues.
Yeah. Awesome. So good to see you guys. Until next week. Have a good one.
You too. Bye.
Bye.
Hey, one more thing before we leave. This podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. We are certified professional coaches, but this broadcast is not a substitute for medical or psychological advice. Okay, thanks for listening. See you next week.